Okay. All right. Branding students, you are in for a treat this morning. A gentleman I have followed a long time, one of the United States of America's best marketers because he gets it. Unfortunately, a lot of other marketers here don't, and we're going to learn more about that as Dave talks to us. So he's going to bring 10 real world things you got to know about marketing. I want to tell you a little bit about Dave. My good friend Buddy Cash, the bass player in all the Delco's hottest cover bands, always told me, listen, even though I'm a great bass player and I can hit the lines perfectly when we do Blind Faith, Can't Find My Home Again, I recognize my job is to put butts on stools. And Dave started marketing at that same level. He worked with bars and bands to build brands and get people buying tickets and coming to shows. And that is pretty cool that now today, years later, he's working with CEOs, executives, and boards around growth and profits. And as I said, I'm a fan. I love his podcast. I love his newsletter. I've learned so much from him. If you take my capstone course, you'll see him all over my D2L, especially around pricing and discounting and all that good stuff. Great link and follow. You should follow him after this presentation if you don't. And I wanted him to speak to us a long time, so I'm going to shut my big face and get Dave to take on over. Dave, take it away.
I don't even know how I follow that. I've had some very good introductions in the past, but that one was like the most high energy. So I feel like I don't even know what I'm going to do now. But thank you, Tom, for having me, and thank you all for being here. I know that it's class, so I'm going to try to do my job, which is to make learning fun and entertaining, so you can take at least one or two of these ideas home with you. You don't know a lot of me about me except for what Tom just told you, and usually I don't do slideshows, so forgive the slideshow. It's completely it's not a serious slideshow, but it's there so that like we can change the look of things for you. If you have questions throughout this, I think I can see your hands raised or not. Just throw them out there, like make a note of it, send them out there, or we can ask questions at the end. It doesn't matter.
Or they can drop it in the chat box and I'll share it.
Yeah, perfect. Whatever. What I did though was I wanted to give you 10 things that happen in the real world that like you might hear the theory of, or you might hear something, about, and they might not make any sense, or you might hear stuff that you go, this is nonsense. And I'll tell you that it is or is not nonsense. So these are 10 things. I've tried to lay them out in an order that goes from last to first. So at the end, it tells a story that's going to be make a lot of sense to you. And if it doesn't, these 10 things still matter. So it was a trick for me to be able to make it work no matter what I did. So I cheated is what I'm saying. We'll start 10 things. You can find me. I'm Dave. There's my website down there at the bottom. Check it out. Right. Let's go. First thing, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about some real world examples. Like Tom said, I do branding and strategy work with leaders and CEOs, executives, boards all over the world. The Australian Football League, Boston Red Sox. I've worked with Amazon, or I worked with Microsoft. I've worked with Amazon. I've worked with Yahoo and Google over the years. I've worked with all kinds of people. It's crazy. So I'm going to try to use some real world examples to tie these kind of theoretical things together. Hopefully, it'll help make things make a little bit more sense for you. We're going to talk about what marketing is and what it is not, right? And I'm not going to say, oh, this is marketing, this is not. I'm going to lay it out in examples. We're going to talk about the plan, strategy, and value. Data. One of the new things I've been pushing people on is not to get lost in the data. And I have a way of framing it that I'm going to teach you about a little bit later that hopefully will make it meaningful for you. And then we're going to talk about discounts, because discounts are for dummies. This is like what launched people knowing me. There was an article that I wrote, I think it was 2015. So it's 9 years old now. It's called Discounts Are for Dummies. They get translated into 7 different languages, and it is fueled everything. It's pretty great. All right, so let's do this. I don't know if many of you know, but Dave Letterman was on TV on CBS for a long time. He used to do a top 10 list every night. That was what gave me the idea for this, because I saw Dave Letterman, his huge bushy beard. It was great. So we're going to go with that. And if I fail, blame it on me, not on Dave, because he was amazing. we're going to start by saying number 10. And number 10 is strategy has become a useless term. What do I mean by this? Well, strategy gets thrown around all the time. I'm going to ask you, I guess you probably can, let's see, how can I do this in the meeting here? I would say raise your hands, but I guess it doesn't work. But maybe the people who can see, because I can see your hands, raise your hand though if you've heard of everything. People throwing strategy around, like Facebook strategy, outdoor strategy, digital strategy, strategy for getting to school on time. I guess people are putting their hands up in the thing. So yes, yes, yes. So strategy has become useless, and then what it means is that people have just stolen the importance and relevance of strategy. And what strategy means is very specific. And Roger L. Martin, who was the dean of the Rotman School of Management in Toronto, and who is now has a solo practice based out of where I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, who has become a bit of a just a really, I mean, he's a really great resource, but someone who I've been able to connect with says that strategy is a series of connected choices, and that it is about what you do, not what you say. And I have been working to develop a strategy course for adult learners and executive students for a while, and I think of it as applied deep thinking. And it's applied because if you don't take action, it doesn't matter, right? Strategy is about actions and not words. And what I've created is a framework that I teach that I'm going to teach you today. So it's like bonus material. And so it's 5 things so you can have a framework you can hang it on for the rest of your learning career or into your professional career, which is the number one question is, what does success look like? That is the foundation of everything. You have to know what direction you're going in. You have to know where you're trying to get to. Does it mean it's a perfect path? Absolutely not, but you need to know where you're starting to begin with. The second question is, who is the customer? Who are you targeting, right? This is the heart of marketing strategy, is who is the customer? Who are you targeting? So you need to know who you're focusing on, because one of the things that goes along with strategy being a useless term is the idea that you can be everything to everyone. So you don't want to do that. You need to be for a specific audience. As Mark Ritson, who created the mini MBA in marketing and brand management, taught me, it's okay to pick a target because there's overlap, right? And there's also completely appropriate to know that you're not going to be for everybody and that you're going to say, this is not for you, right? And that's really been made popular by Seth Godin, who I'm sure is another resource that Tom shares with you. So know who you're targeting, right? And be very specific about making that choice, because it's not a failure. It is a success that you are saying, this doesn't work for people. This is not for everyone. That's totally the best idea. So the third one is, why you? You might think that's a value proposition. You can call it unique selling proposition, whatever you want. I call it a unique value proposition, whatever it means. In my workshops, I say, why you? Right? You need to know why people are picking you over everything else. Because again, if I'm telling you that strategy has become a useless term, it is because often everybody's trying to just do me too. They want to be just a copy of what everybody else is doing. And your job as a marketer and a strategist is to make sure that people understand why they're picking you and your product over all the other products, services, people in the world. Because each of you is going to have a unique bundle of skills once you've left this program, a unique set of experiences, a unique set of insights. You should highlight those, because if not, people want to go to the lowest common denominator, and it's your job, either in your career or as a marketer or in business or in life, to make yourself one-on-one and make yourself sticky. And you do that by understanding why you're the one that people should pick. Number 4 is, what resources do you need? One of the great things that I see that causes strategies to fail, and this is marketing strategy, whatever it is that people don't make allocations for the resources that are necessary to achieve their goals, right? They say, oh, we're going to grow our business 10%, but it'll take us $1 million. And then people will go back and they will say, well, let's do it with half that money, and or half those resources. And that's like a predetermined set of idea that's going to create failure for you. You need to know what resources you need to achieve the outcomes you're shooting for. And if not, if you don't have those, you need to curtail it a little bit and pull back on it so you can be reasonable about your goals and expectations, because you might still do a really great job with the resources you have at hand, but it might not look like that number, the theoretical one, because you never planned for it, right? You didn't have the tools that you needed to be successful. So you have to know that at the start, and you have to be really, really clear about that, because you don't want to set yourself up for failure from the very start, because you're like going, oh, I'm going to do 10 times what I really can do because I'm just going to will it to be. And that's just not going to happen. And then number 5 is the actions you're going to take. Again, the hypothesis is that strategy is meaningless without action. Strategy is really reflected in the actions you take and not the words you say. So what actions are you going to take? And the way I do it when I do this thing called the whiteboard workshop with businesses is I go 30, 60, 90-day actions. And really it's like 30 and 60 so that we can follow up, so we can recalibrate where they're going, because action is really what makes strategy happen. And all of this matters because as a good marketer, even if you don't go into marketing as a career, as a good, just employee or business owner, or wherever your life and career takes you, you need to make decisions that have a consistency across your strategy and across your brand, because consistency counts, because it's very hard to break through and get people's attention in the world today. So you want to make sure that these decisions you make are connected, so it gives you a better opportunity of success. It's no guarantee, but if you aren't consistent, and everything's all over the place, then I can pretty much guarantee with like 99% certainty that you're going to struggle, and that's just how it is. So the in real life portion of this is what happens often is a bomb gets dropped on you. Something like, let's say, we'll use some examples I was talking about at the start. Like, let's say a common one is Gen Z strategy. I'm sure we've all heard that. You might all even be Gen Z, and I'm sure you're all exactly the same. Is that right? Tell somebody, just laugh and smile for me, because I'm sure you all are 100% the same. Correct? You all love Taylor Swift. You all, what else? What are other stereotypes about you? You all play video games too much, and you all spend 23 hours a day on your screens. I believe that's everything. Right? Those are the 3 things that matter about you. Okay. It may not fit. It may not. It may fit. It may work. It may not. What happens usually, you get a bomb dropped in the middle of your workday, and somebody comes to you, usually my age or older, and goes, let's see, let me pick on somebody here who's on my screen here. Paige, I go, Paige, let's we've got to come up with a Gen Z strategy. It's just so important. We must do this, and we got to do it now, because we're like 3 weeks behind on coming up with a Gen Z strategy. I'd never heard of Gen Z until 2 weeks ago, so that means it's 3 weeks. I'm behind. And usually it's BS. Right? Usually it's like completely stupid, and it's because everybody, like, strategy is useless now. So everybody's like, we got to come up with a strategy, and all it means is like, I'm reacting to what I see in the ether, what I read in the paper, what I might have heard in passing. It's usually coupled with this idea of everybody is doing this. And what I told where I came up with, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, Tony Knopp, who is a CEO of Ticket Manager. And I told Tony, I go, if everybody's doing something, it's the same as nobody doing something, and both of them are wrong. So keep that in mind, right? The strategy has become a useless term because people just haven't thought of it as a set of connected ideas. So you have to think of it as a set of connected ideas that lead you in a specific direction. And that framework will be useful no matter where you go. So let's see how I can do this. This is great. All right, so number 9. Did number 10 work for everybody? I'm going to ask Heather, because I can see her on my screen. Heather, was it good for you? You can give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. All right, good. Okay. So number 9 then. All right. So number 9, you will fight your sales team a lot. And I know that this is probably one you may not have heard before, because sales has become considered dominant in so many places, right? I'll ask everybody to, I guess, raise their hands again if I can see them. It's like, well, how many of you have come to this belief that sales is more important than marketing, that the sales team is supreme in an organization? Has everybody kind of like bought into, has heard that? I'm not asking you to buy into it. I'm saying, have you heard it? Like where sales is like dominant. It's Tom, if I drop a little profanity in here, it's gonna like not hurt anybody's feelings. Okay, great. It's bullshit. It's not true. All right. So, but in real life, sales is considered dominant. Marketing has become two things I hear a lot of. It's the coloring in department, and then they're fun at happy hour. Now, I am great fun at happy hour, but I am also friggin' really great at marketing. There's a couple of reasons that I've identified why that happens. There's first one's a term probably if you're taking Tom's class, he's going to have made you familiar with, which is last click attribution, and that's this idea that like just because the last, wherever people make the point of purchase, that's the most important thing, and it just neglects all those actions that people have taken before. So last click attribution is one of the reasons that sales have been able to become dominant because they're like, well, we're the ones making all the sales, but not looking at all the branding, all the marketing, all the funnel work that had been done to get it to the point where you can make that sale. And this just drives people to keep looking at the end of the result, at the end results, without ever looking at the process, right? It's all connected as a bundle of bad decisions, right? And bad ideas. And this has meant that the sales team have been able to do a couple things that they are really good at doing because, again, they're usually getting paid like some kind of bonus because of the sales they make, or some sort of they're rewarded in some way for this behavior. So it's not like it's irrational; it's completely rational to what they're doing. But they dumb down the ability to do research, right? Because the salespeople know everything, right? And I'm going to tell you what's an absolute truth. 100% truth. If Tom does not laugh at this and start nodding his head, I'm going to be very disappointed. It's that the problem is always price. It's always too expensive. It's never the fact that we're not selling on value. It's never the fact that we're shitty at sales. It's always the price. So we need to do more flyers. The marketing team is just not doing enough, right? And this all matters because what you have to be prepared to do is you have to be able to develop and do real research, both qualitative and quantitative. So qualitative is going to be things like talking to individuals, doing focus groups, small bits of research so you can develop a hypothesis. And the quant is going to be big things, big surveys, big groups of people, so that you can kind of get an aggregate and see if your hypothesis is true, right? You build the hypothesis for your research with small data, and you make sure that you're not completely out of line by doing big data, which is qualitative. And you keep going all the time, right? As soon as you know what's going on, you maybe have another question, right? And what I would do, this goes back to when I was in nightclubs at starting out, is I would just talk to people like, oh man, you're having a great time. Why, what did you like? What did you did? What didn't you like? I mean, and I wasn't that cheesy that I would ask it like that, but I would, I'd be talking to people like, oh yeah, and you'd find out things, right? You'd find out like, oh, our DJs are hot, or people like the fact where I started out was a place called Trio, and we had 3 nightclubs in one. So it was my dance music, South Florida dance music. So a lot of today it would be Daddy Yankee, but then it was like DJ Laz and like 2 Live Crew, and I forget some of the other ones. And then we had a rock club in the middle, and then we had disco on the far side. And so people would tell me all these things. And then I was able to understand, because then we could go and find research, right? Most of the time I'd steal it like from the internet and look for what stuff, but we'll talk about that later. But understand marketing has to fit into your business goals, right? The sales team is really, they just kind of harvest all the work of the business and the strategy and the marketing. So the key term to remember is always do strategy before tactics. Sales is tactical. And they have been given primacy because a real big reason is because marketing has done a bad job of advocating for itself. And there has been and you are all going to be so far ahead of every other marketing person, if that's what you choose to go into, just because you're taking Tom's class, because Tom is teaching you how to do marketing the right way so you can advocate. Because most of the time, marketing gets pushed into the corner. It becomes only a tactical thing, and sales can dominate this. So you're going to fight the sales team a lot. So you have to be able to push back on sales because they're tactical. They're harvesting all of marketing's hard work. They always want promotion. They always want discount, and it's always about pricing. And so you're always fighting them because they let the cart lead the horse, as opposed to the horse leading the cart, which is probably a very mixed metaphor, but hopefully everybody understands. The big key is you're going to be fighting the sales team a lot because there's the dominance of the sales team that's been created by last click attribution and looking at the end and not seeing the process that led to the results that they're seeing. Does that make sense to everybody? Or am I completely gone off the rails? So far, so good. Good. I haven't lost anybody yet. I'm doing a nice job then. Okay. So number 8, I guess the other fun question I will ask you then is my top 10 list make sense so far? Has it worked for everybody? Okay, great. We haven't even gotten to the end yet. So number 8 is marketing will get shoved into the corner. And I mentioned that just a second ago. And there's a couple of reasons besides the sales team being dominant due to the reality that like the sales is where you kind of harvest all the money, even though it neglects the process. Finance has become much more dominant again because marketing hasn't been able to stand up and talk about things in business terms, right? And then the third part of that, the third leg of it is the executives. Executives don't necessarily understand marketing, and we haven't done as marketers haven't done a good job of educating them on it. So that means that they want this magic wand to wave over the marketing department and push it aside. They want to think that marketing is this minuscule part of the business when the truth is that marketing is probably one of the 2 or 3 most important things that a business does, because there's so much commoditization in the world that marketing and innovation should be your 2 primary things that you're doing. And why is marketing getting pushed in the corner? There's not enough training, right? And there's probably like tons of training, but most of it's bad. People are listening to the wrong people. I don't know if Tom does this, but I will often say, there are a couple of people I use as an example of people you should not listen to on marketing because they are morons. The top of the list is Gary Vee. I also really question. I like him. He's a wonderful man. Not Gary Vee. Gary Vee, from all I know, is also a nice man, but he's a wonderful man. He has done such a tremendous amount of work, but his ability to convey marketing messages that are useful to you at this point is very limited. It's Seth Godin. He's not really in touch with marketing, right? He's completely out of touch. And I grew up as a young marketer loving him, like thinking and I've had to develop. Or Simon Sinek, that starts with why thing. Like if I could shoot bullets through every one of them, I would take down my we need less guns in this country argument for like just long enough to destroy every copy of this because nobody cares, right? But they're listening to the wrong people. Another reason is because of the rewards of short-termism, right? I believe quarterly capitalism was a term that was used pretty regularly in the 2016 election campaign, which is probably much too you won't remember because you were rightfully not paying much attention to it. But quarterly capitalism was all about short-term rewards. And it just made it seem inevitable that you couldn't invest in your brand and marketing because you needed the results for the market today, right? You were tied to those things. And so it becomes a situation of, what can you do as marketing? You don't have a brand investment. You don't have a take part in strategy. You're not speaking business outcomes. So you just kind of like pushed over into the corner. And like when we need to run an ad campaign or create a flyer or make something look pretty, we go to the marketing department because that's what they're there for. And the way to start combating this, right, which is where I have done I think a better job than most people is understanding how to talk from a business standpoint. So really speaking the language of the CEO and being able, or really actually the CFO too, because the CFO, because of their attachment to the finance and the money that comes in and out of the organization has gained an important role. But again, they're trained in a way that's not necessarily always in the business's best interests in the long term. So you want to understand the strategic goals and be able to speak to the business outcomes that people are trying to create, right? So you can talk about that. You can talk about the way marketing plays into that. You can talk about the financial impacts. The big financial impacts that you can talk about is like what happens when you don't invest in your brand, right? Again, if Tom hasn't shared it with you, I'm sure at some point in the class he will. But there's a booklet from the IPA in England called "The Long and Short of It" by Les Binet and Peter Field, and it's great because it shows with real data how much damage you do to your business and your brand if you don't invest, or your business and your profits if you don't invest in your brand. So you got to look at the financial impacts. And then you can also talk about ROI, even though ROI I find to be a little bit of a complicated metric to use, because you can kind of goose it. You can kind of cheat with it a little bit, but it's easy for people to understand, and they embrace it. So find ways that you can use it, because sometimes you have to play other people's games to reach your goals. I mean, that's just the way it is.
How about 95.5, Dave? I think that's been helpful. The fact that
That has been
95% of
tremendously
your
helpful.
customers, 95% aren't in the market at any time. That is why brand is necessary.
Correct. Yes. And that's especially important in B2B, because I think, and I don't know if the statistic's right, but it's directionally right. So we'll use it, which is that about 2/3 of marketing now is for B2B businesses. And so there's a famous rule that came out of the Ehrenberg Bass Institute in Western Australia. Professor Byron Sharp and his team said the 95-5 rule. And it means that 95% of your customers are not in the market at any time, and that 5% are. And the bigger part, the more impactful part of this was that by the time those 5% get into the market, they've already whittled down the list of potential suppliers to 2 or 3. So if you aren't on that list when they get into the buyer cycle, no amount of sales tactics, no amount of sales focus, no amount of short-term activations is going to help you, because the decision is 90% made. So it highlights and underlines the importance of always being in the market and always doing some form of branding. And I believe I made note of how little actual branding investment gets made. But in most organizations, less than 10%. Most people severely under invest in their brand. So that's number 8. Number 7, data gets all the attention. How many of you are familiar with the idea of big data? How many of you have heard about how data is infallible? Now this is the important one. So if you have heard like that data is perfect, data can do no wrong, just kind of wave at me. I can't. Well, this was probably not as good because I can't necessarily see everybody, but I'm assuming that you've heard something about the primacy of data. And to me, big data is great and all, but we have too much data. And what has happened is we've become overwhelmed by the data. And what that has done is it has led us to a lack of insight. And so I'm going to go back to my friend Roger Martin here. He says that all of this focus on big data and using data to make decisions has led us to make a bet, which is that bet is that the past will look exactly like the future. I know that I've been around long enough, and I'm sure Tom has been around long enough, and I definitely know Roger's been around long enough to say that, like, pretty clearly, the future most of the time does not look exactly like the past. Things are always changing, maybe not as rapidly and in as big a way as people want to make it seem like, but things are always changing. And so the argument is always going to be there that like the data says this, but you kind of have to make the argument that things are always changing and that the data can be instructive, but it can't be absolute in its usage. And so you need to always argue for the idea of we can use the data, but our data needs to be helpful in developing a hypothesis or what the future looks like. If not, you'll fall victim to a lot of these traps, right? And I made some great ones here. Facebook video. Again, you are probably too young to remember when Facebook video was going to save everything, but it was. I'm telling you, Facebook video was going to be the thing that like changed everything forever. I don't think anybody uses Facebook video very anymore. There was another thing that was super popular. There's two actually. I think they go hand in hand to me. Social selling. You used to not be able to get away from social selling to save your life. And another one that's kind of like peeking its head back out of the bushes again is account-based marketing, and they're kind of hand in hand, and they're all dumb. But and then one probably that you're all familiar with because it won't go away. It just will not go away. Is the death of TV, right? TV is like the cable bundle is declining. Over the last decade, it has fallen about 30%. But TV viewership as a whole is up 3%. And it's predicted to continue to grow about 3% every year for the next decade. So these things happen, and data has fed them. And so the truth of all of this is that you need a strategy, right? Because your data not existing inside of a strategy is going to lead you to failure. And in real life, you're looking to have, you're going to probably have to grin and bear this one a little bit. This one is I'm making a concerted effort to talk about how data is reactive and research is proactive all the time. But I realize I'm one voice. And like Tom told you, there's not a lot of American marketers that know what they're doing. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate but true. It also is a great opportunity for me and Tom, guys like me and Tom, who are able to teach students like you how to do things well because it gives you an advantage, and B, like when things fall apart, they need somebody to fix it. So it's great. But you're going to probably have to grin and bear it a little bit and just take the reins and kind of show, oh, this data is great. It's also, from last year, what has changed and what's the same, right? And you just kind of ask questions to guide people back to where you need them to be, right? If everybody's in love with data, you use that, right? We have data that says this, this, and this. And then when I dug around, this has changed a little bit. So you can kind of pull back control, because if not, the people are just going to make their decisions off the data because obviously the data is infallible. It's perfect. I mean, and it is because it's about what happened. It can't be wrong. It's exactly it is what happened. So one of the I made notes here and I can't read my own handwriting, so you got to forgive me on this one. I want you to always won't be collecting insights, right? I talked about in the previous one about those small conversations, the things that, kind of the questions I'd pepper people with when I was in nightclubs and I'd be walking around when I was a manager or when I was bartending, when I was talking to people, and use those to generate insights. Small stuff, focus group surveys, you can use that. A big thing too to use, which is where we can talk about primary and secondary data. And I don't know if you've talked about that yet. Primary data is stuff you do yourself, but the secondary data is really, really great. It's awesome. I use it constantly. It's maybe everybody still uses Google. I use DuckDuckGo. I go in there, I type the question I'm looking for, and I see what kind of answers and research comes back, what articles, what kind of information I can get. And I use that because it's free most of the time. And if you need a way to get around a paywall, I can send Tom a link to a good way to get around the paywall because I've got a couple of those too. So number 7 is data gets all the attention. Big data is supreme, but data is really reactive. Research is proactive. Number 6, non-customers, right? People do not pay enough attention to the non-customers. A lot of times when I bring this up, it is like a eureka to people because they just only think that I guess people often feel like their customer base is stagnant, and I was like, or it's just locked in. And so if you believe that, then it's no wonder that marketing has lost its impact in businesses because if you can't expand your customer base, why would you need to invest in marketing, right? So, but non-customers are often the most important thing that we can look at. It's let's see, how do I want to say it for you? I think that this inability to look at the non-customers. Number one, you have to understand that your non-customers are always going to be a bigger part of the market than you are. And what it does, at least to me, it reinforces a lot of bad behavior. Um, again, you think that your customer base is locked in, so then you don't think about your brand. And then because you think your customer base is locked in and you can't really expand it or change the area around it or shift the contours of it, you think that it drives you to make a lot of short-term decisions. Um, it will lead you down the path to more promotions, and it will lead you down the road to discounts. And what ends up happening is instead of you capturing more of this predefined, really like random set of customers that you think is absolute, you end up shrinking that customer base each year because there's a really good book that I don't know if it's one of your resources or if you've even heard of it called Soccernomics. And a lot of the work I end up doing is in sports and entertainment. And one of the best parts that I go back to over and over again is it talks about the life cycle of a fan. And the life cycle of a fan is really simple, right? When you're a kid, you're Philadelphia. Tom's got his Phillies fan hat on, so I won't use the Tottenham example. I'll use Tom's Phillies example. When you're a kid, you might be like all baseball all the time, right? And then you start to go to school and you play baseball. So then your interest in the Phillies is even higher. Then you get to high school and you find out about dating and homework and hanging out with your friends. So then you drop, right? Then it maybe becomes a little less. Then you go to college and like you got more free time than you ever knew what to do with because college maybe isn't is compared to high school a little bit less strenuous. So then your interest goes back up because you have time. Then you get into your 20s and 30s, maybe you start having a family, relationships, partners, jobs, all these. It goes down because you don't have as much time to dedicate to. Then you get to be someone like me, like in my 40s, and my son is into soccer. So then, or baseball, he's into soccer, which is where this comes from. But so then your interest goes back up. Then you go through a different stage of life and it goes down. All that means is like people are fluid, right? That was a long way of saying that people are fluid. So not focusing or only focusing on the short term, you're missing people at the different stages of their life. So you have to understand that like the non-customers are super important to you because it doesn't mean that they're never your customers. It just means that they're not your customers right now, and you need to be able to meet them where they are. So how do you solve for something like this is you advocate for research. You talk about the lifetime customer value. Earlier I talked about people who don't give you very good advice and learning from the wrong people. One thing I can say that I don't know anything about what he's teaching, but I know that the concept he's teaching is very important, which is Gary Vee started talking about the lifetime customer value. It's very important because it just is reflective of the importance of meeting people where they are and understanding that like it's not a straight line, it's more of an up and down, it's more of a hill. So you have to understand, do the research. You want to do the proper segmentations of your market, which I'm sure that Tom has taught you about how to do a proper segmentation. You want to look for the opportunities. You want to look for where the overflows and the overlaps, right? And you want to understand that lifestyle. The way to win this over is you use data, right? We talked about data before. You want to make sure that like hey, look, this is the life cycle people are in, so you can talk about it. That way you can fight the covering up the loss of customers with a raising in price, which slows things down. Again, this is a sports specific example because let's look at Major League Baseball. Tom having the Phillies hat on is very appropriate for this point in the conversation. Every year for the last, I'm going to say, I don't know if it's every year. I think there was one year that was out. It was an outlier. So for like maybe 16 of the last 17 years, Major League Baseball's total attendance has declined. And it's down, I think, I don't have the exact numbers, but it's down about over 20%, I believe, from the time when I was probably just getting out of college. So, close in age to you to where I am now. But the revenues are through the roof. And so what they are able to do, and this happens to a lot of businesses, they have less customers, but they're charging them more. And each year, the customer base gets a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller until there's no customer base left. And so the way that you understand the non-customers better and like understand ways to give them more value and to bring them into the fold is you look at what the competitors are doing. And you don't look at it in a way of like, when I have to, and this picture from Tokyo is very good. I don't have to be McDonald's, but I can understand why somebody's going to McDonald's, and I can offer something that fits into my brand that can fill that same sort of need. You know, maybe McDonald's is cheap food and a clean environment and fast. And so that might not be my market, but eventually my market wants good food in a fun environment. And so what I want to do is make physical and mental availability of people aware of it, because it's not because they're not eating at my 5-star restaurant right now that they're never my customers. They just want McDonald's right now. But I don't, so I can't ignore them because there's a small group of people in any one time, which goes back to the 95-5 rule, that want my 5-star meal, that want to go to my baseball game, that are willing to go to my nightclub. But I need to know why. That way I can, when they come back and they're making that decision that I'm a part of the decision set, they pick me and not somebody else. And hopefully I did a good job of explaining that, because it's a little bit like, sometimes it's hard to make the point exactly well. So let's go to number 5 then. And what time's class get over, Tom?
11:45.
Oh, 11:40.
I'm sorry, no, 10:45. My bad. My kid just about had a heart attack. What does he say at 11:45? I ain't sticking around that long. 10:45. Forgive me. I'm
10:45. Good. I just want to make sure I had enough time. I didn't want to.
Oh yeah, we're good. We're good, Dave. You're rocking and rolling. Perfect.
Perfect. All right. So, all right. This number 5. Discounts are for dummies. Tom, do you have the article?
I have, in fact, I have the article. I have a lot of that stuff in my capstone class. This is a branding class, but I have all that. Discounting is for dummies included.
Oh, okay. So Tom can give it to you, and I've become a better writer over the years. That was the because I was like, if not, I would find it and I'd send it along so that everybody can have it. It's the thing I'm most famous for in the world of marketing, advertising, and branding is discounts are for dummies. And why do I say this? At the time it was right. I think I was focusing on tickets a lot more. Now I'm focused all over the place, but discounts are destructive, right, of your brand value. They undermine your brand equity. They get you on this yo-yo diet of let me discount, let me see the spike, let me discount again, let me see a little spike, a little less of a spike. Let me do it again. Let me do it again. Let me do it again. It becomes like yo-yo dieting, right? Like you gain a little bit, you throw it away. You gain a little bit, you throw it away. The big point, which is where I've always, again, if you follow any of my logic at all, which is that I need to understand how this works into the business outcomes, is it kills your profits. Now, one of the most incredible numbers I've ever heard, I learned it when I took the mini MBA in marketing with Mark Ritson. And he said that for each 1% of discounting you do, if I ask people to put it in the chat, because this will be good. What percentage of profit do you think you lose when you discount 1%? And I'll give everybody a second or two, and we can do like, even if I wish I had the Jeopardy music, do 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 do, and we could do it that way. But yeah, I'd be curious to see what you think.
Anybody going to write this down? Well,
yeah, just drop it in there.
Dave. Say it again.
Yeah. So the question is, how much what percentage of your profit do you think you lose if you discount 1%?
All right, yeah. Somebody throw some answers in there.
Throw some answers in. 20%. Okay.
Ryan says 20%.
Yeah. Who else?
Jess says 10%.
Yeah, 15,
Connor
15.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
25.
Zoe, yeah. Emma 25. Yeah. So it's all over the place.
Yeah. All right. So this is great. Okay, because all right, everybody's like okay. So everybody 10, 15, 20, 18. I like that. Robbie comes with like a little bit different number just to stand out. I like that. Corey says 5. Okay. So the number Mark gave me, he said it can be as much as 40% of your profit can be lost for every 1% of discounting you do. Now, that's pretty, that's an outlier, right? And so don't think that you always lose 40%. Because Harvard and the Harvard Business School and HBR, Harvard Business Review, they have a couple of many articles that point to the reality being consistently 10 to 11% you lose for each product. And then if I look at the people I worked with, it's somewhere around that 20% number. And again, it depends on the price of your product. It depends on what the profit margin was to begin with. What it means more than anything is that you don't do it, because even if it's 10%, how often can you throw away 10% of your profit and still be a successful business? But why do people do it? Can you hold on? My bulldog is at the door and she's not going to let me stop until I let her in.
Get her. You don't want her to break through the door.
No. Come on in, Penny the Bulldog.
I hope everybody's appreciating this is solid gold what he is sharing with you today. I mean, I would again, I'll post this after we're done so you can rewatch this. What Dave has given you is MBA level excellence on marketing. And it's good to absorb all these points. So take it away, Dave. The Bulldog's in that. The Bulldog
is now on the, you'll probably hear her snoring at any moment.
Rock on. That sounds good.
All right. So why do people do it? Right. That's the big reason, because this is one of those common things like, we'll discount. They do it because it's easy, right? And in the short term, it works. Remember that yo-yo diet, right? You get a little sugar rush, a little bounce when you make that first discount. And the problem is like, have you ever had a ball, like one of those super balls, one of those big plastic balls that you throw and the thing bounces freaking sky high? The first time you throw the ball, it bounces as high as it's ever going to get. And then every time it hits the ground, it bounces up. It goes a little bit higher and a little bit higher, a little bit higher until you get no impact at all. And that's the way you need to think about discounts, right? I have in the past talked about price wars. And the thing about it is, is there a right time to do a price war or a discount? And that you can. And the reason I'm going to tell you this story is just because I want you to say, like, I am known, and I think Tom would say, I am a discounting absolutist. Don't ever do it, right? You reset your price, you can do whatever. But I want to give you the other side of the story. That way you can say, like, look, I don't want to discount, but if I should, there's like some things I should do. If you know that a product is going away forever and you're just trying to get all the stuff out, discount. If you are a big business and you can fight a price war because you have the profit margins to accept the short term, you can discount. In these cases, though, you want to make it very limited, right? And you want to be as aggressive as possible at the very start, because the big challenge is that it becomes habitual. And the habitual nature of the discounts is what destroys your brand. So if you're going to discount, make sure it's something that's just going away. So you're just trying to clear something out. Or if you're going to be like in a price war situation, you go so aggressively, so far, but for a limited amount of time that that you're just going to win, because it's like playing chicken, right? The most aggressive person is going to, or the craziest person is going to win. You make sure you are going to be the craziest, because if not, it is a race to the bottom. And so I think I already covered what happens to your brand when you discount, but the promos work less. Your brand gets destroyed and you undermine all your marketing, because this is strange, but maybe this is helpful to you. A lot of times when I'm talking to people who are solo practitioners or small business freelancers, things like this, I go, you need to set a high enough price that you can afford not to work sometimes, and never discount, because there's people are going to just hold you to the fire and they're going to think there's always a better deal. And that applies to
Black Friday
everywhere.
Sales. Student asked, Jess said, hey, what about Black Friday sales or holiday sales? What do you think of those?
Well, So I'd have to go back to the research on this because I don't want to say that I have the absolute answer for you right now. But what I find is that they aren't as effective as people make them out to be, right? So they're effective at driving these discounted sales, but people say they're loss leaders. And with the internet and people's ability to do research, they're not as effective. They're very effective at driving people to buy that one cheap item or those two or three cheap items. They're not very good about driving people to make for customer acquisition or helping you gain some sort of foothold in people with people that you think would happen otherwise. So I know people do them, but I don't necessarily know that they're very successful. In most cases, I would advocate for, instead of the deep discounting, you bundle. You add some additional value there because that's much more effective, and it doesn't create that sort of yo-yo diet of discounts, and it helps you sustain a lot of that brand equity.
Does you think it helps attract non-customers to your store, or
Well,
maybe
it
those customers who don't
attracts
want?
people, but are they the people you want? Is the
Yeah,
question.
that's what's it, because there are people that just want the discount.
Yeah, exactly. And is that the person you want? Yeah, some businesses are built on the discount model, right? There's Walmart's the most famous example. And I was like, there's a store I go and I visit my family in Georgia that I love, and it's a big discount store, and I go to it. Right, I love it. It's but it's not attracting people. Maybe it's not attracting the people you want, unless you're just a discount brand. But you have to know what kind of brand you are and what you're there for. So I think for you in a branding class and a marketing class, the more important thing is how do you fight this thing about discounting? Like, how do you keep it from overwhelming you? You start with your research, right? I know I'm going to have hit on this research a lot, but marketing and pricing deserves research. You want to understand the role you're playing, the value you provide, what the competition looks like. A tool, because people are always not always, again, always is never correct, but a majority of people are kind of baffled by how do you do research for pricing. And I'm sure that somewhere along the line, I hope you have learned about the Van Westendorp pricing model. It's 4 questions. You lay it on you plot it on a chart, it leaves a big hole in the middle, right? I've used it a bunch over the years. And if you ever ask me to remember what the 4 questions are on a drop of a hat like this, I always forget them. But it's free, right? As long as you have an email list and you can attract people, you can test for price. This is where the qual and the quant comes into play, because qualitatively, when in small groups, you kind of want to understand where they're buying from in general when they're comparing for you, what they're buying, and by what they're buying, I mean what solution are you offering? What's the problem you're solving? And then you're able to build this big model using something like the Van Westendorp. I mean, there's other stuff too. You can use test variables. You can do all kinds of stuff. I mean, there's I try to get people to start small, just because it's that stuff becomes crazy.
I know Ritson loves that Von Westdorf model.
Yeah, that's great. And there's where's the book? Confessions of a Pricing Man. It's
Herman Simon. That's a great book.
Yeah, there we go. So yeah, Herman Simon. They do some great work around pricing.
He's the king of pricing. His company all over the world.
Yeah, he's really really great, and it doesn't have to be that hard. Like, this Van Westendorp thing is easy. You can make it work for people. Pricing is art and science. There's no perfect price. This is perfect for right now. I spend far too much time. Where's my notebook? Here was on my desk. I tried to clean off my desk so I had enough room to wave my arms and make notes. But I've been working on an article for a couple weeks now about pricing, about dynamic pricing, because of the Oasis tour that's going to happen in the UK next year, the reunion. And so there's all these different pricing models. And they're all, oh, there's a perfect price for everybody. There's no perfect price. It's a bit of an art and a science. And I think just like the ambiguity is good to be comfortable with. Understand that, like, you want to make sure that your price reflects the value you want to deliver. Understand that like it's easier to cut your price than to raise it. The formula I teach people is, and I will draw it on here because I have note cards in front of me. Price is equal to perceived value. Boom. I think that comes through. And just keep those in mind. If you are serious, if you're studying a branding class and you're studying marketing, it is worth taking some sort of class in pricing. I'm just trying to keep it as a little bit not dumbed down, but just like at the surface level, because I can overwhelm you with some of this stuff. But the price is the key. My wife uses that actually in her business. She tells people the price is the price and discount. She actually sent one day a printout with about 10 pricing articles to people on her staff because they wanted the discount. It was great. You can reset the price, but don't attach it to a discount, right? So if you're charging $20 for something and you realize you overshot the mark, but you don't give a 25% discount, just reset it to $15. It's easier to do it that way because the discount conveys you don't believe in the value you're offering. It conveys that there'll always be a better deal. It conveys just a lot of negative things. And the way that you should think about process is through 3 P's of pricing. And that's the process you follow, which is research, the price you set, and then the biggest part, which people mess up all the time, is how they promote the price. You got to promote the price. You got to say it loud and proud, right? When I first started, an example from my business is when I first started doing the whiteboard workshops, it was $5,000, right? I don't discount. I don't negotiate the thing. It's like if you want me to come in for the day and do the thing, that's it. And I sold it at every turn. Now it's $10,000, and people go, "Well, I can't believe you charge that much for people." And I was like, "Going, I do, and I'm worth it." And that's the way I do it. So once you set the price, it's the price. And just be loud and proud about it. It makes sense to everybody. Everybody cool? All right, let's do it. Number 4. Because now I know we're on. Yeah, okay. Now we go. I want to make sure we hit time. Never go over your time. That's the most important lesson because people tune you out. It's better to leave people wanting a little more than like going over. So when you get into the real world of jobs, that's going to be your bosses are not going to remember that one. So you're going to keep that one in mind all the time. Number 4. All right, product launches can make or break you. Right, I love a product launch. I'm on a board here in DC, and the executive, the CEO was like, they're going to launch a product, and I asked him, well, what's the product launch strategy? And then the guy goes, that's a great question. He goes, because what we did was we adjusted the product launch strategy about 18 months ago, and every launch, and it's nonprofit, so it's like sports related programs. The signups have grown 30% every year since we instituted this new product launch thing. So and I just say that because it can make or break you. When I teach it, I want people to think of it like a blockbuster movie because that's the way I learned how to think about product launches. What I try to get people to think about is have a 30, 60, 90-day plan, right? And if you only have 30 days, if you only have 2 weeks, you may do what you have, but you want to start with what's the best case scenario. Like if I can do everything, what would I do? Because what we see often is that businesses that they just drop things out into the middle of the world, right? They go, oh my God, here's our great new thing, and they haven't built up any drama, any anticipation, which is completely counter to the way that a movie goes off. Right. I thought the Barbenheimer, right, which when Barbie and Oppenheimer came out, both of them did a really great job, and they even did a really great job of like even pulling them together. But they were everywhere, right? And that's like really good movies. Well, 90 days. The Batman movie, Robert Pattinson was everywhere, right? These comic book movies, they're flying what's his name? Robert Downey Jr. all over the world. Scarlett Johansson's everywhere when it's like another Avengers movie. You want to get the attention. You want to build on each other. one of my big beef with people in tickets is that they just drop the new schedule. Like the Phillies have dropped their schedule about for next year about a month ago. Just kind of like randomly on like a Tuesday or Wednesday, the schedule for next year came out. And then there was like no realization that like going, hey, we could use the dropping of our schedule as a way, as like a driver for next year's ticket sales, or even for ticket sales for the rest of the year, and just drop it. And that goes counter. One of the great product launches of all time. And again, how we feel about him now is different than what the example I used, but was with Tesla with the Model 3. The Model 3 was like teased and built up over and over and over again to the point of the product launch date, which wasn't even the day the car went on sale, which is when they opened pre-sales for the car. And in about a week, Tesla gained $12 billion. That's $12 billion in $1,000 reservations for the Model 3. So I say that because I guess the opposite of it is that like too often people do drop the product into the mix, just like the Major League Baseball thing. And I think the more important thing for you to teach you, if I'm taking these things that don't happen in the real world that you want to avoid, is why do they happen? And honestly, why do people not pay any more attention to the product launches? I have no idea. I mean, I really can never, because as soon as you highlight it to people, like, oh, why are we just going to drop this out there? Shouldn't we build up some like drama and some excitement and some awareness of this before we go on sale? People are like, oh man, that's a great idea. They just never think of it. And I don't know why. I mean, this honestly, no clue. Because as soon as you point it out, people are like, oh, that's a great idea. We should do that. It's and so I guess I can't read my notes here sometimes, so you got to forgive me when I'm. What do you do about it? The biggest thing is education on the importance of it. I think there's some really great examples, and I try to, but with some of these things, it's hard to use examples that are outside of Apple and Tesla. The NFL does a good job of these things, but educate people about the importance of it, because as soon as this is like one of those things, it's like kind of like a slam dunk. It's easy once people understand why it matters. And the example I gave before was the soccer club that I sit on the board of. That's it's a nonprofit. A 30% boost in signups for all programs since we started using just a pretty standard launch strategy, right? Really, it's probably 45 days, and we build anticipation all the way through. But that's 30% increase in signups for programs across all programs. So the organization in about the last 18 months has gone from where we're serving 6,000 kids a year to 10,000 because of that. I mean, that's a huge benefit. And the organization's budget is $3 or $4 million a year. It's not like we're spending a boatload of money, because we don't have a boatload of money to spend. It just highlights the importance of product launch, because if a nonprofit can do it, then a business that like lives and dies on profit should be able to do it as well.
The NFL does a great job. I've seen
the NFL does
the Athletic
really
rates the schedule. The schedule drops from the most entertaining, effective to the worst.
Oh yeah, yeah. And then they see like that ticket sale, and the tickets go on sale the next day after the schedule releases, and it works. And so I think that like it's important for everybody when you think about the product launch. First off, education, make people aware of it, because it's no brainer once you do it. But then track everything, right? Because like we have these 30% increase numbers, and I'm able to tie it to the almost doubling the number of kids we serve because they've tracked everything. Because if you don't track it, then it's easy to forget it again the next. But if you start tracking it and you're able to see from year to year how much of an impact it has, it's super helpful in making sure things keep going for us. So a thumbnail way to think about this is that 80%, approximately 80 to 90% of what you do, your marketing budget and your marketing thinking for any product that you're going to sell or launch, should be focused on the pre-sale and the day, and the launch period, right? 10, 15, 20% should be afterwards. And what typically happens is that it's flipped. 10 or 15% is put on the launch and the pre-launch, and 85 or 90% of it's focused on the end. And you've lost all your ability to create drama, tension, excitement. Daily things every day you're building, right? And this is lessons from like the soccer club. Have some big moments. For the soccer club, it was like tryout dates for travel. There's tournament. There is a football fiesta that we do. There are some neighborhood events, and keep driving people so that like it's a self-perpetuating cycle, because it compounds, and so the product launches can make or break you, which is in contrast to the Major League Baseball, which is like they drop the schedule in the middle of August and then the tickets won't go on sale probably until like December. And there'll be very little communication in between.
Hey,
That's a bad idea.
would you accept payments for these pre-sales? One of my
Of
students asked.
course.
Okay.
Yes. If you
And by the
can.
way,
Because sometimes you can't, but like, if you can, yeah. I mean, that's sort of the Tesla idea, right? Like
yes.
put down your deposit. It's refundable, put it down, $1,000. I'm not even smart enough to do the math on how many cars that is, but I think it's like over 1 million.
Wow. And by the way, Dave, just so you know, it's 10:37. I want you to keep going. Students, I understand some of you got to rock out of here, but for those of you that stick around, I do not want to stop. Dave, do not take away any of this great presentation. Give us all you got. We'll go out. We'll go overtime. Overtime. It's called bonus session. This is a bonus session. So at
Bonus class.
10:45, you can rock out of here, students. I will share the whole presentation afterwards. But by all means, Dave, you keep sharing this wisdom, man. I love it. And the rest of you can take off if you have to. If it's just me and Dave, it'll be just me and Dave. We're going to finish this here.
All right. So number 3, then, your value can make you look like your value proposition can make you look like a genius. I think I've hit on this a lot, right? It's why me. Most people focus on features like speed, power, times a minute, whatever those little tactical impacts are. The magic lies in changing the framing to focus on the value, right? Focus on your impact. How do you improve something? How do you change something? How do you move someone? Right. This is I'll give you a good example of how not to do it. Look at almost every Broadway play. They're all like pull quotes from reviews from reviewers that nobody cares about. The best product doesn't win. The big key, the best product doesn't win. But the idea of the value proposition, it kind of underlines everything I've been talking about, which is research, right? Understand what people are buying, who the competitive set is, how you change people. It also underlines the importance of the product and how you package things, right? It's not just I'm not just throwing out the product. I'm not just throwing out a ticket. It's a bundle, right? I don't know if Tom has access to give you the product in 3 ways, but there's the actual product, and there's the augmented product, and then there's the value, right? And the value's in the middle, the actual product and the augmented value. Think about everything that somebody gets. It's super, super important. And the product, the value proposition to underline the value of your brand. It should show through the strategy you've developed, and it should be something that will help start attracting some of those non-customers. The big key on the value proposition is because everybody wants to follow the herd. Everybody wants to do a Me Too thing. Know your customer. Offer a solution that is relevant to them, that focuses on value and impact. And your value proposition will make you look really, really good. So number 2, and actually they're all built to like be a little less because I've given you everything earlier. So I think we'll still make it on time, which of course I would be really bad if I didn't make time. So number 2 is you will have to fight for your brand at every turn. And I've talked about this before, how the underinvestment in brand is kind of an epidemic. A lot of times it's less than 10% of the budgets. Branding, it happens because brand is hard to measure in the short term. How it shows up, and this is where the long and short of it comes in, is you see it in what doesn't happen, or some of the negative impacts if you don't invest in your brand. And those are things like price sensitivity goes up, right? People are less reluctant to pay for what you're offering. Your sales will go down. right? That yo-yo diet effect of discounting comes into play. And your advertising becomes less effective. And you can track those things, but they're there because you didn't invest in your brand. But in the short term, the metrics are going to goose, and you're going to look like a genius for cutting out the brand spending. And most of the time, that person's gone because they've taken another job. They cut, and then they leave. And why is this happening? It's a lack of understanding. It's poor training, the wrong voices, right? And you can win by focusing on the business results. You can use your data and use stats to tell a story, right? That's the most valuable thing about like the Ehrenberg Bass and the IPA stuff is allows you to tell a story. It allows you to change the frame of the story you're telling. So number one is the big one, which is that nobody cares. So you see, like from 1 to 10, it all works back forward. So the most important lesson I can teach you today is that if you're doing marketing or if you're in business, the starting point is nobody cares. Inside your brand, your product, your business, it's super important. It's a huge part of your life. You spend so much of your day focusing on the brand, the product, the business you're in. Outside, no one cares. We got families, we got kids, we love our sports teams, we're reading a great book, our car's broken down, traffic sucks, I'm listening to the news, there's a stupid ass election going on, all these things are in our way, we don't care about your brand. So it's important to know that no one really cares, that small things are insignificant. And this means for you is that you have to have that plan, right? If I were a better spreadsheet putter together, I would put an Alice in Wonderland quote in here that I use almost invariably in every conversation, which is that if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And so the big thing is to understand the importance of the strategy, because nobody cares and you have to show up over and over and over. I did some research with a sales and marketing team in baseball. And what we found was that it takes about 13 touches before people pay attention to you and you're about to sell. This is one of the best branded and best marketing teams in baseball. If it takes 13 times for them to break through in a sales process, what hope does any other brand have? So you got to have the plan. You can't be everything to everyone, and you have to be consistent. And those are the three big lessons. So like I didn't put the slide here for the end, but you can stay in touch with me. But the things we covered, the most important 3 takeaways that I want you to do is strategy. Actually, 5. Strategy before tactics. You got to know where you're going before you can take any actions. Don't get pushed off the research. Speak about business outcomes, because that'll give you the power of marketing, right? Number 4 is make sure that you're consistent. And number 5, discounts are for dummies. So
there's a swivel stick right there.
I always close with that one. It doesn't matter. There's 4 and discounts are for dummies. My website's davewakeman.com. You can email me. My name, davewakeman.com. And connect with me on Twitter and LinkedIn. I'm easy to find. My newsletters are on my website. And that is it. Wow. Look at that. What time did I come in?
Right on time, man. It's 10:44, brother. 10:44.
Oh, any questions?
So if you stop sharing, we'll see everybody's face that's here. Say goodbye. If you stop sharing the screen, I'll take a big thumbs up picture as we rock out of here. There's everybody. All right.
There we go.
Hopefully you all enjoyed what you saw. We're going to give our thumbs up as we thank Dave as we rock out of here.
Thank you.
On 3, we're going to give our thumbs up. 1, 2, 3, thumbs up and thank you. Bye. Come on, everybody. Let's hear it. Thank our great speaker. That was awesome. I loved it. That was one of my favorite sessions ever. And I've been doing it since 2020. Thank you.
I had a lot to live up to. I saw Giles. So I had
Giles, and we've had some great people, but this is up in top 10, instant top 10, instant classic. All right. Have a great rest of the day, everybody. Dave, again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful Thursday. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.